1971 wasn't just a good year for rock music, it was arguably the greatest single year rock music has ever produced. The albums that dropped in those 12 months read like a list someone made up to win an argument. Led Zeppelin, The Rolling Stones, David Bowie, Rod Stewart, Carole King, all of them at or near their absolute peak, all of them releasing work that still sounds urgent and alive today. These weren't songs that happened to chart. These were songs that changed what rock music thought it was capable of. Here are 15 of the most unforgettable ones. 15. Maggie May.
You stole my heart, and that's what really hurts.
May almost didn't make it as a single. It was originally the B-side, the throwaway, the track nobody was betting on. Then radio DJs flipped it over, and everything changed. The song reached #1 in both the UK and the United States simultaneously, which was genuinely rare, and it turned Rod Stewart from a respected musician into a genuine superstar overnight. What makes it hold up is honesty. There's no glamour in the lyric, just a young man being completely outmatched by an older woman and knowing it. The mandolin line gives it a looseness that feels almost accidental, like the song was caught rather than constructed. It remains one of the most emotionally direct recordings of the entire decade. 14. Wild World.
You know, I've seen a lot of what the world can do, and it's breaking my heart in two.
Cat Stevens wrote Wild World as a farewell, specifically for his then-girlfriend Patty D'Arbanville after their relationship ended. The tenderness in the lyric is real, but so is the slight condescension. And that tension is exactly what makes the song interesting. It's a breakup song that genuinely wishes the other person well, while also suggesting they might not survive without the narrator's guidance, which is a complicated emotional position to hold in 3.5 minutes. Stevens delivers it with such warmth that most people miss the ambiguity entirely. The acoustic simplicity of the production keeps the focus entirely on the vocal performance, which is exactly where it needs to be. It charted well on both sides of the Atlantic and became one of the defining songs of Stevens' extraordinary run in the early 1970s. 13. Black Dog. Led Zeppelin opened their 4th album with this, which tells you everything about their confidence level in 1971. Black Dog has no drums in the intro, just that guitar riff dropping in like a challenge, daring you to find the groove before the band decides to give it to you. The call and response structure between Robert Plant's vocals and Jimmy Page's guitar was inspired by Fleetwood Mac's Oh Well, but what Zeppelin did with that idea was entirely their own. John Paul Jones wrote the riff, which is its own interesting footnote, the bassist writing the most guitar-forward moment on a Led Zeppelin record. Plant's vocal performance is physically demanding in a way that becomes more impressive the more you understand about singing. It announced Led Zeppelin 4 before anyone had heard a single note of the rest of it, and the rest of it turned out to be one of the greatest albums ever made. 12. Changes. Bowie released Changes.
Changes. Don't tell him to grow up and out of it.
In 1971, and the world largely ignored it. The single barely charted on release, which in retrospect feels almost incomprehensible given how completely it has embedded itself in the cultural conversation since. The song is essentially Bowie announcing his own artistic philosophy, the constant reinvention, the refusal to stay fixed in any one identity before he had fully demonstrated what that philosophy looked like in practice. The saxophone intro is one of the most recognizable openings in rock history, and the chord progression underneath it is deceptively sophisticated for something that sounds so immediate. It took years of retrospective reassessment before Changes received the recognition it deserved, eventually becoming one of his signature songs. Sometimes a song arrives before the audience is ready for it, and this was exactly that. 11. Won't Get Fooled Again. 8.5 minutes long, built around a synthesizer drone that Pete Townshend programmed himself, and ending with one of the most famous screams in rock history. Won't Get Fooled Again is a song about revolution and disillusionment. The idea that overthrowing one system just produces another system wearing different clothes and it arrives with a fury that makes the political point feel visceral rather than academic. Roger Daltrey's final scream before the last verse is the kind of moment that reminds you what rock music is actually capable of when it commits completely. The synthesizer backing track was a genuinely innovative production choice for 1971, giving the song a mechanical relentlessness that perfectly matched the lyrical content. It closed the Who's Next album and remains one of the most powerful album closers ever recorded. 10. Stairway to Heaven. It has been called the greatest rock song ever written so many times that the claim has almost lost meaning. But strip away the familiarity and listen to what's actually happening. A song that begins as a gentle acoustic meditation and ends as one of the most explosive guitar performances ever committed to tape, moving through multiple distinct sections without ever feeling disjointed or forced. Jimmy Page's guitar solo was voted the greatest rock solo of all time in multiple polls. And while that kind of ranking is always subjective, it's hard to argue with the emotional trajectory of what he plays. Robert Plant has expressed ambivalence about the song over the years, tired of its dominance over everything else Zeppelin created. But the audience made their decision in 1971 and has never revisited it. Some songs simply belong to everyone now. 9. Gimme Shelter. Technically released in 1969 on Let It Bleed, but Gimme Shelter's cultural life extended deeply into 1971 and beyond, becoming one of the most used songs in film history and a permanent shorthand for a certain kind of American darkness. Mary Clayton's guest vocal, the part where her voice cracks on the word murder, is one of the most emotionally devastating moments in all of rock music. She recorded that vocal late at night, already in curlers, and ready for bed when the Stones called. And the rawness of the performance reflects exactly that context. Keith Richards' opening guitar figure sets a mood of genuine menace that the rest of the song never releases. It is one of the rare recordings that sounds like the thing it's describing is unsettled, urgent, and impossible to look away from. 8. Life's a Long Song. Jethro Tull doesn't always make these lists, which is a mistake.
You're falling awake, and you take stock as a new day.
Life's a Long Song was released as part of an EP in 1971 and showcased a side of the band that got overshadowed by their more theatrical, progressive work, warm, melodic, and genuinely moving in a way that their more complex compositions sometimes weren't. Ian Anderson's flute playing here is understated compared to his showier moments, which makes it more effective rather than less. The lyric deals with aging and perspective in a way that feels earned rather than performed, and the acoustic arrangement gives it a simplicity that amplifies the emotional content. It never received the commercial attention of Aqualung, which came out the same year, but among fans who know the catalog, it holds a special place as one of the band's most quietly perfect recordings. 7. Behind Blue Eyes. Pete Townshend wrote Behind Blue Eyes as a character study originally intended for a never-completed rock opera called Lifehouse. But it transcended its original context immediately and became one of the most powerful songs about isolation and misunderstood anger ever written. The shift from the quiet opening verse to the explosive middle section is one of the great dynamic moments in rock music, a structural choice that makes the emotional argument of the lyric physically felt rather than just heard. Roger Daltrey delivers the vocal with a restraint in the verses that makes the eventual release hit harder than almost anything else in The Who's catalog. The lyric has been adopted by generations of listeners who felt misread or misrepresented, which is exactly what great rock writing does. It finds the specific and makes it universal. 6. Tiny Dancer.
Always with me, tiny dancer in my head.
Elton John released Tiny Dancer on the Madman Across the Water album in 1971, and it performed modestly at the time, too long for radio, too sprawling for easy categorization. Then, Almost Famous used it in 2000, and something shifted. A generation that hadn't been alive in 1971 discovered it simultaneously and claimed it as their own. But the song was already great before Cameron Crowe needed it for a tour bus scene. Bernie Taupin wrote the lyric as a love letter to the women who surrounded the early rock scene. The seamstresses, the dancers, the quiet figures who made the whole thing possible without ever appearing on the album cover. The piano arrangement builds with a patience that most pop songs don't have, and the payoff when the full band arrives is genuinely earned. It is one of the most beautiful recordings Elton John ever made. 5. Bron-Y-Aur Stomp 3 Led Zeppelin entries on a list of 1971's greatest rock songs isn't excessive, it's accurate.
My Lordy Lord, come on now, it ain't too far. Tell your friends all around the world, ain't no companion for a blue-eyed murder.
Bron-Y-Aur Stomp appeared on Led Zeppelin 3 and represented a side of the band that casual listeners sometimes missed entirely: loose, joyful, acoustic, and completely uninterested in being heavy. Jimmy Page and Robert Plant had retreated to a cottage in Wales called Bron-Y-Aur to write, disconnected from the noise of being the biggest rock band in the world. And the music that came out of that retreat had a warmth and spontaneity that their more monumental work sometimes traded away for scale. The song is reportedly about Plant's dog, Strider, which makes it one of the best dog songs in rock history by default. It sounds like people genuinely enjoying themselves, which is rarer than it should be. 4. Roxanne Free released their self-titled album in 1969, but their influence extended powerfully into 1971 and beyond. And Roxanne, Not the Police song represents a particular kind of blues rock that the early 1970s did better than any other era. Paul Rodgers' vocal performance across Free's catalog is one of the most underappreciated achievements in British rock, and Roxanne showcases the raw authority he brought to every recording. The band operated with a minimalism that felt almost aggressive given the maximalist tendencies of their contemporaries. No excess, no showing off, just the song and the performance stripped to their essential elements. Free broke up and reformed multiple times before finally dissolving, and Rodgers went on to Bad Company. But the recordings they left behind retain a directness that most rock music from this period can't match.
3. Rocks Off. Exile on Main Street
Was recorded largely in the basement of Keith Richards' rented villa in the south of France, and it sounds exactly like that: chaotic, humid, slightly out of focus, and absolutely alive. Rocks Off opens the album and sets the tone immediately, a song about dissipation and excess delivered with such energy that the subject matter becomes almost beside the point. The horn arrangement adds a looseness that contrasts perfectly with Charlie Watts' drumming, which is disciplined underneath all the chaos in a way that keeps everything from flying apart. Mick Jagger's vocal is buried slightly in the mix, which was a deliberate choice, giving the impression that the band is surrounding the singer rather than backing him. Exile on Main Street is regularly voted the greatest Rolling Stones album, and Rocks Off is the moment it announces exactly what kind of record it intends to be. 2. The Battle of Evermore. Sandy Denny is the only guest vocalist Led Zeppelin ever featured on a studio recording, and the song she appeared on is one of their most atmospheric and underappreciated recordings. The Battle of Evermore was written by Page and Plant the night after Page acquired a mandolin he didn't know how to play. Plant wrote the lyric overnight. And the whole thing was essentially recorded as a demo that became the final version. The interplay between Plant and Denny, trading verses like two characters in a medieval narrative, creates a texture that nothing else in the Zeppelin catalog approaches. It's a folk song at its core, rooted in Tolkien imagery and British traditional music, but it achieves something genuinely haunting that folk music alone rarely reaches. Denny died in 1978, which gives the recording an additional weight that wasn't there when it was made. 1. Brown Sugar. Brown Sugar opened Sticky Fingers, the album that also introduced the Rolling Stones' tongue logo, and it arrived in 1971 like a statement that the Stones were not remotely interested in slowing down. The riff is one of Keith Richards' most immediately recognizable, built on an open guitar tuning that gives it a looseness that standard tuning couldn't have produced. The lyric is deliberately provocative. Jagger has given multiple contradictory explanations for what it's actually about over the years, but the performance is so committed and the production so sharp that the song operates on pure momentum, regardless of what the words mean. Bobby Keys' saxophone solo remains one of the great rock saxophone moments, arriving at exactly the right moment and departing before it overstays its welcome. The Stones released Brown Sugar as the lead single from Sticky Fingers, and it reached #1 in both the UK and the United States, confirming that 1971 belonged to them as much as it belonged to anyone. 15 songs, 1 year, and an argument that 1971 might be the single greatest year in the history of rock music. The artists on this list weren't just making great records, they were redefining what rock music could say and how loud it could say it. If any of these sent you straight to a playlist, that's exactly the right response. Let us know in the comments which one hits hardest for you, and we'll see you in the next one.